Welcome to another episode of The People's View. And I'm Senator Kevin Avard with a bunch of representatives here, honorables, as we are all so called.
As we are now.
To my right is the Honorable Don Legrand. To my left, the Honorable Steve Negron. And the Honorable Kevin Scully. Welcome to the shows, guys. How are you? It's good to see you.
Doing well.
It seems like we're laughing a little bit too much before the cameras start, but that's okay. It's a good way to start off the show. And well, let's start off with you, Don. You've got a heavy list there of things that you want to talk
I've got a list of current bills that interest me. One of them, HB 486, on felons being allowed to vote. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I know in Florida that they're already trying to pass that. That's a million votes for them.
Okay, let me throw this out there to you. If you do something wrong and you're punished for it, when the punishment is over, do you go back to doing your normal things without restrictions?
No.
I think in some cases you do.
Well, if you can't do normal things without restrictions, your punishment isn't over.
That's right.
It's never ending.
That's right.
So
if a felon does his time and he gets out with no restrictions, no parole, no halfway house, nothing, he's done his time, whatever he did is complete. It's over. Why can't he vote?
I think he should be allowed to vote.
That's a great question. I mean, we're kind of like predisposed to thinking that, you're a felon and you're a felon for life. There are some things you can't do.
Mm-hmm. You can't own a gun.
Can't own a gun. So it all. How wide do you want to cast this net to say, are you all the way back to square zero? Mm-hmm. Terry McAuliffe.
It would exclude a sex offender because that's for life.
Right.
So that sentence is never over.
Right. To Kevin's point, I mean, if you've paid your debt to society, then are you now a contributing member to society? The governor of Virginia, McAuliffe, tried to do that. I think it was in 16 or in 14 that he wanted to commute some sentences or give a bunch of felons, the ability to vote. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was a strategy or not, but I'll be honest with you, Don, I don't know where I stand on that right now, but it's a great topic to discuss. My first inkling was going to be no, and then Kevin said, he's paid their debt,
right.
So why not? So I think it's something that should be discussed, and we shouldn't be closed to it.
I believe in redemption, and I think if a man or woman has served their time, and they should have their rights restored to them. I mean, you can do 2 strikes or 3 strikes, you're out. I think I'd be okay with that. But I'd like to think if we really want to bring people back, to rehabilitate them back into society, let's give them another shot.
What about allowing them to vote while they're in prison?
No. Because that's part of the punishment.
Right. And remember, voting is a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if you've done something within a judicial system that now has you incarcerated, then I think you've abdicated some of those privileges. And so voting would be one of those that I would think that you would not be allowed to do while you're incarcerated.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. But I do believe in redemption.
Yeah.
And as long as the slate is wiped clean, then it's the same as if they hadn't committed the crime. They paid their time.
So allowing them to own a firearm would be okay then, if it's not a violent crime?
That again is a good question. No, I don't think allowing them to own a firearm would be a good thing. No.
What else you got?
Oh, I've got a lot of things. How about voting for a 17-year-old
No.
that turns 18 between the primary and the general election?
I've heard that rhetoric, and I've read some stuff on it. My personal opinion is no. There are laws, and when you start pushing the boundaries, so somebody's going to say, why not 16 and a half? Why not 16?
No, this specifies they're 17.
Right.
But they turn 18 between primary and the general election.
If you're going to vote, you have to be 18 at the time of your vote, not leading up to it. I think there's a lot of things like, for you, if you take that course, a 17-year-old who wants to enlist in the military, right, needs to get parental approval.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you have to get your parents' approval.
Mm-hmm. My son did.
Right. So what you're saying now is, hey, if you're 17 but you turn 18, why is the primary less important than the general?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't. They're exactly the same.
Right.
So I believe you should be 18 when you cast a ballot, and that's why I'm sure there's a lot of people, and they want to, they want to get young voters in, as do I. I get that, but as you used to say in that movie, their law is their law, and at 18 is when you're eligible to cast a vote, and I think that's the way it should stay.
Well, I guess I'm a troglodyte because, quite honestly, I'm not sure we should let them vote at 18, kids, because really it's such an important issue in terms of determining the future of the country. And, the old saying is, how kids think their parents are so stupid, and by the time they get to 22 or 23, they think how much their parents have learned in those few years. Right. And I really think what it is, it's the growing up process for the young people. So I do find it interesting that the party that wants to limit marriage to an 18-year-old, saying you can't make that kind of decision, you have to be 18, are now saying it's okay to vote at 17?
And what party is that?
Part of the Democrat Party.
Okay. Just be clear.
But doesn't it take just as much common sense to drive a car at 16 as to vote at 18?
You would hope.
I have to tell you, I think a vote's much more dangerous than a gun. you get enough people voting the wrong way, horrible things can happen.
I know there is another bill, SB 7, which was just introduced yesterday, which is going to have a very important impact. We had some people from Massachusetts and from Virginia coming up to tell New Hampshire how to vote. And I believe Senator Levesque is one of the author of this bill. But basically, if you go to DMV and you get your license renewed, you're automatically registered to vote. And it's a complicated way, and it's expensive. There's like a $3 million price tag to it every year, and you're going to really weigh down DMV big time with this new bill. But they're trying to undo what we've done to make sure that the veracity of your vote is there.
Right.
We've done a whole lot of work on it with great resistance, and now that the Democrats are in power, they're doing everything
to undo everything that we had done in the past.
Everything.
Right. Well, sitting in the election law committee, I learned quite a bit about the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, right, and then Motor Voter. One of the things that you run into, and talking to Secretary Gardner often in committee, was he made a choice, to do same-day registration in lieu of motor voter, because what he's found out now is that each one of them has their own parasite.
Sure.
Right. The problem with motor voter is that I don't have to prove citizenship when I go and get a driver's license. Right.
Yeah.
I don't. So if I tie voter registration to motor vehicle registration, then that opens up a huge door. And some people have been looking for, and I think we've talked about this even in election law, is you need to show citizenship on your driver's license by something, by a mark, by a different orientation, something so that when you show and you go, whether you go to the polls, you know that person has provided proof of citizenship. When I allow people to get a driver's license and automatically roll them into the scrolls of voters, there's no way to stop that from happening.
That's right.
And if you want to talk about an opportunity for people to be able to vote that are not by the Constitution, and even the New Hampshire Constitution, not eligible to vote, I think that just throws everything into this tizzy.
Right, and watering everything down, and it just making everything murky. It's rife for abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I'm not to interrupt you, Senator, but there was a great article in the Rolling Stone that they actually cited Representative Mike Moffett in there. He wasn't on the covers, what I told you.
Our Mike Moffett?
Our Mike Moffett.
Really?
Yeah. Great article, and I'll forward it to you. But they're talking about the GOP, not just us here in New Hampshire, but across the country, is trying to suppress the young vote.
And it's just the opposite.
I know. It's amazing how they can take that perception and then write this article, which the Rolling Stone is a widely read magazine, and they're thinking that the Republicans are trying to suppress the vote, and I always argue, when they said that we're not allowing college kids to vote, everybody has an opportunity to vote absentee. That's your right to vote.
So Senator French has a bill. And I'm not sure it's going to pass, but if you vote in New Hampshire, you're a New Hampshire citizen, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're a New Hampshire citizen and you're going to college, you're entitled to in-state tuition.
Oh.
You are. But the gauntlet that you have to go through to get in-state tuition is incredible. But the fact is, if you're an in-state voting here,
Absolutely.
you are a citizen. You are entitled. And, you know, if that dormitory is the place where you live, that's your home.
Absolutely. You know,
And that comes with some responsibilities.
Sure it does. You know, you can't have 2 feet in 2 states.
Right.
You know, either, as I talked about in the House when I spoke on this under Well, either you are for everything or you're not. You know, this isn't a la carte. You don't get to pick what you like and don't like and what you have to comply
Hamburger
with.
philosophy.
It is.
Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce.
You know, do something. You know, this is, you can't have it your way. This isn't Burger King. You know, but that's what they're trying to promote, and they label the conservative movement, the Republicans, as trying to suppress the young vote. When, to your point, it can't be not further from the truth.
We just want every vote to truly count for
Absolutely.
the person that
You bet, sir.
That's all.
that represents.
That's all.
That's not hard.
It's that simple.
You know, and you see people at the polls when they have to give out their driver's license. People are saying thank you, and this is a wonderful thing. Good, it makes sense.
Right.
They don't want people that are not vested in their community to undermine what you spent a lifetime building.
Right.
Right. So we have to ask the Democrats to stop trying to disenfranchise New Hampshire citizens
That's what they're doing.
and basically stealing their votes.
Right.
Yeah. Because when you let somebody who shouldn't be here and doesn't belong here vote, you've stolen a vote.
Absolutely.
From
I really think it is the party of projection, because it seems as though everything that they accuse the Republicans, I think they're guilty.
Yeah.
So lawlessness and up to what else you got?
Don's the prime pump.
HB 579 is discounts for automobile registration, seniors, veterans, disabled, different discounts and exemptions for that group. According to the New Hampshire Constitution, that shouldn't happen, because it's picking certain people from certain groups, which the Constitution says we can't do. So what do you think about that?
Well, we as veterans, we get a one-time off for property tax. And the funny thing about it is, both Terry and I, my wife, is a veteran also. My name happened to be on the top of the letter that was submitted with justification, and I got $500. She got $250. That was, you want to talk about somebody? You want to talk about a riled up Irish woman?
But is even that fair?
I'll be honest
Because
with you.
you have homeless veterans,
Yes, sir.
you have veterans that don't own property,
Right.
and they're not included.
Right.
So you're picking and choosing who gets a
You are
discount.
in many things, you know. And you really are actually making this type of class of society that if you're in this one group, then you get these additional bennies. If you can get somebody that's in an Venn diagram that's in all those circles, right, and he or she is getting away with not paying some other things. So I believe that there are some things, maybe a one-time off. If a young man or woman comes back and it's a first-time purchase of a house, that you get some break. You know, this thing about in perpetuity all the time, I necessarily don't agree with that. You know, but you can't start developing different classes of individuals. You know,
Equal protection under the law.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm an absolutist in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be treated any better, and I don't want to be treated any worse.
Right.
That's right.
What do you got, Kevin?
Well, you want to start with this, or you want to take the lead on that?
I'll let you take the lead.
Well, there were a few things that caught my eye, and one of the bills that actually made it through committee is not to pass unanimously, which I'm a little disappointed about. It's Senate Bill 76, and it has to do with the prohibition of offshore oil and natural gas exploration in New Hampshire. And my personal feeling is that I think it's wrong, because we live in a technological society. We absolutely have to have our natural resources to be able to generate energy efficiently. And when we pass these kind of laws that basically say, okay, Texas and Oklahoma, you get your hands dirty, you do all the work, you maybe take the chances, we'll take the benefit of your sacrifice and risk-taking so we can have the electricity coming out of our plugs. But we're a little too good to be able to, to roll up our hands and get our hands dirty to do that ourselves.
So what does the bill actually do?
Well, it basically would prohibit the exploration offshore, and I think, or the exploitation of any of the resources that we find to bring it back here. Mm-hmm. Now, I think most people in New Hampshire know we are somewhat resource poor, and we don't have any oil or natural gas deposits, at least terrestrially, on the land. So, but I do think that as a matter of national security, we absolutely have to be an energy independent country. So we're not at the what is the right word? Not the risk, but the mercy.
The mercy.
Thank you. The mercy of foreign folks who may not necessarily be our friends. So for that reason, I think that we should be sending a signal. We're part of America. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and take chances if we need to make sure we have what we need and we stay energy independent. So I would say this should not be voted through.
All right.
And I'm sorry, sir, especially when we talk about how energy costs in our state are just so cost prohibitive. Why wouldn't we look at, any type of an opportunity to do something, to look at some things? Why would we?
Sure.
Why would we limit ourselves?
We had the opportunity last session to increase net metering, and I know some people look at that with a jaundiced eye because it is subsidized. But I was in one of the hearings yesterday, and where the transmission costs are going up, and the more dependent you are on those big fat power lines, the higher the cost of energy is. So how do you think outside the box? Yes, you have all exploration, but we have water that flows in a river. Nashville alone could generate 3 megawatts of electricity to help reduce our transmission dependency. If you could allow local municipalities and school districts and large corporations to generate up to, say, 5 megawatts, you reduce that load. That's one of the answers. And for some reason, we just can't get past that mark to say, hey, look, hey, Nashville, we can generate 3 megawatts. Why not? It's clean. People want clean energy. If you drive up 293, you'll see all those solar panels. Have you seen those yet?
Going.
Heading southbound from the toll. There's a whole bunch of solar panels out there around, but that's part of the answer. It's not a fix-all, but if we reduce our dependency on those big fat power lines, and that's what people don't understand. Look at your bill. Transmission, distribution, that's the little power, that's the little lines. Those are the biggest part of your bills. Whatever you subsidize is a fraction. It's like 1%. Of your bill. So yeah, you're subsidizing something for $15 a year or something to that effect versus the $22 a month. Right. It's time to think outside the box. And energy is an issue. I thought we had a chance last session. I know we're going to have another chance this session to work on that. But
we do seem to have a little bit of a flat earth syndrome or NIMBY nut in my backyard,
right,
where people are just unwilling to say that we need to, and I hate to say it, we may need more transmission lines or natural gas pipelines into New England because we don't have those natural resources. Northern Pass, I mean, my God, Hydro-Quebec has almost unlimited quantities of hydroelectric energy, which is renewable energy. They're ready to sell it to us for dirt cheap. And we can't get people to say, okay, let's build those power lines and bring it down here. Now, the folks in the North Country, and I know you were up there talking to folks.
1/10 of the population.
But it is funny. I do know when we had the Claremont decision about education, they said, okay, you send up your dollars from down in the southern tier to subsidize our children's education up here. Okay, we can do that. How about you send some electricity down from the north to us so we can keep churning away to make the money so that we can subsidize some of the things that you do have subsidized up in the northern part of New Hampshire.
One thing I think people don't get a hold of also is the fact that when you talk about energy, you're not talking about a free market. It's controlled. It's not a free market, and people are trying to apply free market principles to something that is regulated. You can't do that. And this becomes almost a religion to the hard right and the hard left, and nobody wants to talk, and nobody wants to compromise. There are people that will resist a pipeline because of global warming or global something.
Global something.
Change.
Big something.
And then there are those that say, well, yeah, we can't subsidize anything because that's not right. But wait a minute, you're not even talking the true facts of what's really going on. And they're not able to meet, and it's scary, because when you talk energy, it's almost like talking religion to both sides of the party.
But it's not only energy. The current situation in Concord is, if he's for it, I'm against it.
I've seen that.
If you're for it, he's against it.
Right.
That's the mentality.
Yeah.
There's no one up there willing to say, tell me your reasoning, and I'll tell you mine, and we'll work it out.
Absolutely. We have had some progress there, though, Don, because when people do come together, take notice.
Yeah.
Right? And we had some bills that actually were vetoed, but that both sides and both extreme sides came together. And
we did that with Medicaid expansion. We came together, but it just doesn't happen often enough.
Right.
Well,
it doesn't. You know, and it's funny. You see that even at the national level. I mean, that's where the kids in AAA here in the States, they see the big leagues and they see exactly what and people are beholden to those people, and they know that, whether it's the current slate of the federal delegation, that they see that this opposition doesn't matter if there's any merit to it.
Right.
My first answer has to be no.
Oh, there is no merit to it. It's just the way it is. I've got to be against it if you like it.
That's right.
It can't be any good if you like it.
That's right. And it's crippling this country.
It is.
I used to say
it's not only here in New Hampshire. It's throughout the country.
No, when Congress was listening to the president, some good things that he was talking about, they pulled in their arms.
And they're told to do that. I'm sure. I'm sure that they've got some sort of script that they need to follow. But I used to talk to folks when I was on a campaign trail. I said, I can remember vividly of Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Yep.
Shoulder to shoulder at press conferences. They couldn't have been more polar opposite when it came to policy. But they knew when they got together, then the people of this country are the ones that benefited. And we've lost that. We've lost it for a long time now. And it's disheartening sometimes.
It is.
Because you ask yourself, now there are Republicans who are waiting to go for the 2020 election to win back the House. For what? So that we can promote good policy, or just so we can be the guys to say no now? I mean, what is our motivation to get people back into the House and to work with the current administration? I mean, what is it for?
You're there to serve the people.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. And everywhere we go, I was at the dentist this morning, and the young lady's in my mouth, and she goes, I voted for you. I said, well, thank you. Now that you've got that drill in your hand, but we kind of talked, and she is just a common, everyday, good-loving New Hampshire person, and she's just like, sometimes I just throw my hands up and say, my vote doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter who I send to Washington or who I sent to Concord.
But it does matter, and it does matter,
yes, it does.
and it does matter, and the fact that we lost the Senate by 250 votes, the majority, but some races are won by 1, by 2,
sure,
by 13, and you know what? We're up in Concord doing the volunteer work. I don't consider us politicians. I'm sorry. For $100 a year, no.
Just cheap politicians.
No.
Stupid politicians.
It is the epitome of public service. And when you lose sight of that, you don't belong up there. But
it's the only true public service.
It is the only true public service that's out there. And people need to understand that. And don't look at us and bulk us in with the Congress and the feds, because we're not like that. We are your neighbors. We are engaged in local policy that affects your outcome. And there is something incumbent upon the voters to be engaged to some degree. We can't be doing it all for you. We can't. The people have to be engaged with what's going on up there. You've got to, go a little bit more than what you're hearing on the news. You've got to do a little more research on topics that affect your children, that affect your taxes, that affect the price of food, that affect your community. If you're just waiting to throw stones at us, having not done your homework, well, shame on you. We can't do it all for you. We can't push that tide all for you. You have to be engaged, and every vote does count. And I really resent when people say that, because, well, then why am I up there? Well, because if I don't go up there, then the bad guy's going to get up there who's going to be looking out for their self-interest. I know what public service is, and I work with very good public servants that care. And it's a different breed here in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
So
it is. I mean, politics in New Hampshire is certainly different than anybody that I've ever talked to or been around, you know, because we are neighbors. I mean, you know, look how large the body is.
Right.
You know, I mean, we have representation from every walk of our state. And they have a voice, but they need to exercise that voice.
They need to.
Absolutely.
No, personally, I built a wall around my house as soon as I was elected.
I tried to get in.
I wouldn't let you.
I know.
I stopped hobnobbing with the little
Well, that's
people.
okay.
You know?
You separated my even from my kids.
But it is just really amazing. We truly are our neighbors. You know,
Right.
and
we're engaged with the public. I'll be in cleaning a guy's house or cleaning their carpets and having a talk about what's going on in Concord. Right. You have a physical touch to the people that represent you, and that's what's so beautiful about New Hampshire.
And they'll hold you accountable for those people that are interested. You know, they'll look at you and say, "Come here." Are you LeBron? Come here.
They'll say a little more than that. They don't say it that nicely.
And the first words you say is, "No, it's not what you think."
No.
Read the bill.
Read the bill. You weren't there. No,
That's
honestly.
Right.
You know,
Right.
once and it's funny because you'll see a piece of legislation and then you'll hear all the sides of the story, and you can't walk out of there with a soundbite.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's part of the problem I always felt being a conservative is that I think we really do have the superior ideas, but they're very difficult to condense down into sound bites.
Right.
You know? So, you know, if you say Republicans hate young kids, you know, or something, you know, like that. That's something that's easily said, and you can say, well, no, wait a second, that's not true, and I'm going to explain to you why. And then, of course, now you're getting into your 10-minute, very logical, reasoned explanation.
Right.
But most people don't have that.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the news cycle's agenda.
Right.
I was getting my hair cut the other day, and I happened to talk about the food stamp bill that we presented a while back. And you know, those that can work should work if you can. You know, there was a work requirement, right? It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, we were on that bill together.
And the blurbs that were out there is that Avard hates kids. It wants to starve them. Yeah. You know, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute. The person that's cheating the system is stealing from the mom that really needs the diaper, that really needs the milk. And I'm talking to this person who's cutting my hair, talking about somebody in their family or past family that was using their food stamps to buy drugs. Yeah, that's right. People were cheating. They were cheating, and it happens. And the street smart people know it. Yeah. And just getting into those conversations, well, that's why we put in the bill, to protect the mom, to protect the dad, the single parent that really needs it, and not as a way of life, but as a help to get out of that rut, to enjoy this American dream.
Right,
you know?
and there's nothing immoral about saying to somebody, can you please get out of the wagon and help us pull?
Right.
Right.
There's nothing immoral with that. As a matter of fact, I think it's immoral for somebody to say, I want to get in the wagon and you pull me,
no
but
one's
I'm
entitled to get in that wagon and have them pull you without them helping. Nobody.
And the taxpayers, when they see somebody's trying and they're getting out of that situation that they just need that help, they're willing. They're and thankful people that want a new start or a fresh start, they're willing to help because that helps everybody.
Right.
But when somebody's abusing the system, and they do.
Sure.
Nobody ever talks about welfare fraud. Nobody ever talks about the fraud in the systems. It's not good TV.
We talked about it quite often and at length in HHS. The problem that we found is in 90% of the fraud cases, it was like $1,000, $1,200 involved. It cost $3,200 to investigate.
Right.
So
the department
it wasn't worth investigating.
Right.
I mean, they admitted there was fraud, but the numbers just don't work.
Right.
The cost of doing business.
Right. Right.
So, what else you got, Don?
Well, we can talk about the opioid disclosure form that HB 638. It's a form that a doctor would have to give to a patient if they prescribed an opioid. They would have to give this information to the patient, make sure the patient understood the information before they could get the prescription filled.
At least make them aware
Right.
of the potential.
Right, and it's an educational form.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Do they have to sign it before?
They have to sign it that they have
prescribe?
received it. They have to sign that they have read it. To me, it's a good bill. I would favor the bill.
Given the situation that our state is in, you know, anything that promotes awareness in that situation, and you're in the doctor's office anyway, I agree. You know,
Well, every field is about education.
What's that?
Every field is about education. You have to educate somebody
Sure.
into every field so that they understand it before they can
Right.
implement it in any way. So before they could get an opioid prescription filled, they would know full well what the ramifications are,
Right.
what problems they may have with it, what the addiction that it may cause, all of that.
And do you find is that getting both bipartisan support for that one?
This one is actually it passed committee on a 12-6, so it was pretty much a bipartisan, a partisan vote.
line.
You know, you can't watch a television commercial with any of the drugs being promoted without a full education. Meaning, it's going to cause cancer, it could cause your life.
But that's all people listen to is the side effects.
Yeah.
They don't listen to the fact that this can cause other
Sure.
concerns.
Yeah. You know, my only issue about even though, and I agree with you, Don, I would probably support something like that. But at the one hand, you know, here we are trying to make sure that we have a consumer that is aware of potential ramifications of taking this drug or taking it more than as prescribed. But then I walk out of one hearing room and go into another, and now we're trying to legalize marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm caught in this twixt and tween, right? I just left a group of people saying we need to be proactive and make a consumer aware of the ramifications of this narcotic. And then I go across the hall, and everybody's got, you know, these white shirts with cannabis on it.
I was watching the news yesterday about Massachusetts and all the money that they're making from their marijuana, and I can just see people going, oh, but how that could help the government in New Hampshire if we could just tap into that money. But what are the side effects?
But we might as well go ahead and legalize it. I would vote against it, but we might as well legalize it because the first year it came in, it was all about terminal illness.
Yeah.
Right.
The next year they added one more condition.
Right.
Next year they added one more condition. It's so many conditions now that qualify for marijuana that you might as well just legalize it.
You know, that was, and I voted for the legalization of marijuana in the use for soldiers with PTSD. That they, so in a very confined medical approved approach, I think it's great. Allowing somebody to line their closet with tinfoil and black lights and grow plants is a little different for me. And I lived in Colorado when marijuana became legalized. And remember, those people, it's still a federal offense.
Yeah.
Right? So those people can't even bring their money to banks.
It's a federal offense, but the federal government sends out to 19 people per month marijuana.
Under medical marijuana.
No.
Even medical marijuana, it's still an offense because you lose your Second Amendment immediately.
Oh,
once
true.
you get that card, you're
right.
done.
At one time, the federal government sent it out to over 100 people. Some of them, most of them have died, but there's still 19 left that on a monthly basis get federal marijuana.
Where's the federal ranch?
The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
The feds are not complying with their own laws.
That's interesting. I did not know that. That's
Absolutely.
a quandary.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm in the minority here in this group, but I have to tell you, this is the libertarian side of me. I'm saying if God made the plant that grows in the backyard, I think we tried prohibition in the country and it failed miserably, and it actually led to the creation of organized crime. I would make distinctions. If we treat every single drug as equally as bad and equally as dangerous, I think we're doing a disservice. I would much rather we have our resources devoted to those things which truly are addictive and can kill you pretty damn fast. You know, methamphetamine, opioids, the things like that nature. That's where I'd like to spend our time and resources. And the rest of it, again, I believe as an adult, that that you need to give people those choices. And just, I came to live free or die in New Hampshire for a reason. I say this is an area where we just leave folks alone.
I think before...
But you cause more problems. The more you regulate certain aspects of a situation, you cause more problems.
Right, well, I'm saying...
Rather than just let it go freely.
You know what's really beautiful about this right here? Is you don't see this with the Democratic Party. There is freedom to disagree within our within our group.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's a curse because we can't seem to get together on certain things. But you know, there is freedom of thought in this party.
Yeah.
Oh, no question.
And I see it more and more. I don't know how many times we just, even when I was a state rep, I would watch two Republicans just debating each other at the well.
Oh yeah.
And the Democrats are just sitting home, just laughing, just looking at. And more than not, have you ever seen Democrats debating each other at the well?
Never.
Well, you can see it too in the voting patterns. It really is
they're
interesting because you know, if you look at the distribution curve of voting, the Democrats are basically like this because 95% of them will within 10% of each other across the board over the course of a legislative season. It's really amazing. And then you go over and you look at the Republican voting pattern.
You get a scatter
And
plot.
it's like bimodal, for God's sakes. You know, it's just all over the place.
It really is the big umbrella in our party. It really does allow dissent. Hey, just another topic though. What do you think about this whole idea of people embracing more and more socialism?
I would just say one question. Show me one country where it has improved the country, and I'll be willing to listen.
Show me how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the things that really is missing, people want that free stuff. And
I want free stuff.
But what they don't understand is that there is a thing called the ruling class. And it's the ruling class which dictates to the rest of the people how they're going to live. And they don't see that part of socialism. And I don't think they're being taught that in colleges or in the schools.
Right.
You know, people say that, I've heard it said that, you know, when you're a teenager, you're probably, if you're not a socialist, you don't have a heart. But, you know, if you're a socialist when you're an adult, you don't have a brain.
Right. As Churchill said that. He said,
Something
if
to
you
that
weren't
effect.
a liberal when you were a teenager, you
There you
had
go.
no heart. And if you weren't a conservative at the time you hit 40, you have no brain.
But they don't teach about the ruling class. It will be a minority of people that have all the wealth that will dictate what's going on at the lower ranks.
Just go look at Venezuela right now. 10 years ago, it was the strongest, most productive country in South America. Rich beyond their means, producing oil, and now it's a state of anarchy because socialism took hold. And all you have to do is just look south.
Who's pushing these ideas, though? I mean, where is this?
Colleges.
College professors.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry, my wife has this theory that the college professors nowadays are these guys that are the product of the late 60s and 70s, right? That they didn't agree, they didn't join the military or whatever, so now they have freedom to do what they want. And they're promoting. I went out to Keene, and there were 9 Keene State College Republicans. Phenomenal young people. So anybody who wants to tell me that, you know, we don't have good future, I'll disagree with them vehemently. But they were telling me stories about first day in the class, the professor would hand out a survey, and the survey was, what's your position on gun rights? And this is a statistics class. What is your position on life? What is all these social issues? And if you failed, almost like the New Hampshire Firearms Coalition, if you failed to fill out the survey, right, then you were downgraded. This young man said he did a paper on his position, I think it was on pro-life, and he was very proud of his paper and got a B, which I would have happily have taken a B in college. But he went and he talked to the professor about why I was downgraded. What are the content was it, you know? And he goes, well, I just don't agree with your position.
Wow.
This is
So much for freedom of thought.
This is a state school that we're paying for, or the state is paying for, and these are what these kids are subjected to.
So basically, as soon as he saw his position, he didn't have to read the rest of the paper, just grade it.
That's exactly right. And then, I'll go on. Go ahead, Kevin. No,
I was just going to say, I honestly, hindsight being 20/20, I think conservatives in this country, the biggest single mistake we made was ceding public education to the radical left. and they have
And throwing money at it, saying, "Hey, say I care."
And we're literally paying for this indoctrination of our children. I mean, when you look at the surveys that have been done in terms of the college professors and where they are in the political spectrum, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's off the charts.
95% of them are liberal and donate to the Democrat Party, and those are the people who are forming the minds of our children who are coming. And now we're seeing
who are the lawyers, who are the teachers, who are the journalists.
But all you have to do is look at the finished product. What's coming out of the high schools nowadays, it's not working. It's obvious not working. Not when you need remedial reading before you can enter college.
And I think there's something that's happening right now, right before our very eyes at the Capitol, is they're trying to do away with the school choice programs and the charter schools, and those are the biggest hope that are being provided for young children, especially children in poverty. Across the nation,
at a much lesser cost.
At a fraction of the cost.
A fraction of the cost.
And it allows these kids to learn at a pace, in a way that suits their needs. Public school is great for some kids. It's fantastic, but not for every kid. And for an organization to be able to educate a group of kids at a fraction of the cost of what the Department of Bureaucracy is doing, there's resistance, and that resistance is because the ruling class doesn't want independence, autonomous individuals out there doing their own thing. That's what people don't understand about socialism. You have to go by the department, what the state, or, there's a lot of movies out there now. Citizen, you need to act just right. You have to comport with the Department of Bureaucracy. But as soon as you think outside the box, we can't do that.
Right. I talked about this, I think, the last segment that I was on, is that, I've been fortunate enough that my children, we've had them both in public schools and private schools and parochial schools. And so we've seen a gamut. And I'm a firm believer that the child gets out, I don't care what child it is, they get out whatever they put into it.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Input equals output.
Absolutely. And, you've seen some phenomenal kids come out of the Nashville school system that have gone on to some very top-tier four-year institutions, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then you've also seen private schools and parochial schools where kids just barely get by, and they don't. So there's the mixture. The thing that bothers me the most is that people try to regulate, to me as a parent, what I can and can't do for my child.
Right.
And anytime government tries to dictate to me as a parent, and I had many discussions about on the transgender and transsexual, a whole bunch of other stuff, but on this education, is that, it's my responsibility, not the state's,
don't
not
take
the
away
Department
my
of Education,
rights.
that I'm going to do what's best for my child. And if I want to take the money that I'm paying, by the way, and this isn't a statement. I'm a homeowner. I pay taxes. That's my money, right? It's my money. So we lend it to you, and we hope you do the right things with the money that you get out of the property taxes, right, for education. So all of a sudden you are going to say, no, you don't get to have a say in where your kid goes. Well, yeah, you're telling me I don't have a say in the money that I'm giving you to send my kid here? I don't buy it at all. And they look at it as almost an elitist thing, that we have made a decision that we're not thinking that public schools is good enough. And that's not the case.
Right. No, and it isn't the case. We support the public schools.
Absolutely.
But there was one thing that was brought up because they wanted to get rid of this tax credit thing that's out there. And one of the reasons was because children go to parochial schools, or they go to religious schools, or sectarian schools, they call them. And so the person introducing the bill to get rid of these tax credits for school choice quoted the Constitution, and in the Constitution it talks about piety. Teachers need to be elected. It says it. It says it, and it talks about piety. How can you teach piety in the public school? Well, what is piety? Look at the definition. It's religion.
Yes.
Sorry, that's what it says. So on the one hand, we can't allow teaching religion, even though it is required. Piety is taught. It's right there in our Constitution. It makes you scratch your head. What are we talking about here? Why is there such a resistance for moral values to be taught to our kids? Why is that a problem? Because the ruling class it threatens them. And that's what socialism is. And that's, I keep going back to the ruling class. Socialism is a ruling class of individuals who don't want people to think on their own.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why they've tried so hard to drive God from the public square, is that if there is a God and he's a creator and he's informed us on what is right and wrong, there is an absolute right and wrong. Whereas if there is no God, then the state decides what is right and wrong, and it just becomes a matter of power and expediency, where they're going to decide what's in the ruling class is going to decide what's in their best interests. It can change from day to day, but we're going to impose our will on you, and guess what? We get to decide what's right and wrong.
Yeah, they determine what the mores or the moral imperatives are, and that can change like the wind. So
That is no constant.
there is no constant. There was a philosopher who said that if there's no God, all things are permissible.
Yes, it's true.
You were going to say something?
What I was going to say is going back to education, I still have to mention the fact that when it comes to public and private schools or charter schools, whatnot, in New Hampshire, rather in Nashua, the Academy of Science and Design is number 4.
In the state.
In the state. The Micro Society
Just
on
up the road.
Howard Street is number 33. Not one public school in Nashua is in the top 100.
Wow.
That tells me a story right there.
Right.
Kevin, what else you got?
The product that we're getting out of the schools is not worth the cost.
Well, do we want to go there? Public contribution to the retirement system. Should the state be putting back money into the retirement system? And I am going to say the answer to that is no.
And I agree.
The reason for that basically is that it creates a moral hazard. And for those who may not be really familiar with the term, but you are parents, it's when your child comes to you and says, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then you say to them, but your grandmother just gave you $20, why didn't you buy it? And they say, well, oh, if it's my money, it's not that important. And suddenly they decide that they can do without. Now, we got into a situation where when it came to some of the public sector unions and the retirement systems, there were 3 parties. It was the politicians, the unions, and the taxpayers. The unions got the politicians elected. They sat down at the table together and decided what the benefit distribution was going to be. And the one person who wasn't invited was the taxpayer. So they gave away money at unsustainable rates to the unions, and now they're starting to feel the effect of that. And so in order to fix it, what's the answer to what's the answer? Other people's money. So they're asking us again to put money back in there to subsidize what I consider to be really poor choices and bad fiscal policy.
What's the bottom line that is owed to the pension system?
Oh, I'm actually not even, I know we're not solvent in the long term. I think right now they're trying to ask to put $40 million back in there. But again, it comes back to this. And I live in Nashua. I'm paying the property taxes here. I'm being affected by the fact that we have to deal with these pension issues. But I don't think it's right to say, somebody else, you give us your money to solve that problem.
Don't agree to contracts the taxpayer can't afford.
Right.
Right, so we have to fix it here, and as long as we keep subsidizing it and grabbing other folks' money to deal with this issue, we're never going to, confront this issue and really fix it. So it's very uncomfortable right now. It may end up costing us more money, but let's do this right and fix it once and for all, rather than just looking, again, like socialism, it works till you run out of other people's money. So let's not deal with this issue this way.
Okay.
You want to pick one?
Yeah, Steve, what do you got on your?
Well, I just wanted to make mention that Tuesday there was the new GOP chair, Steve Stepanek, had a little rally in front of not Senator Hassan's office, Senator Shaheen's office, about calling on our federal delegation to say something about this representative from Michigan that had all the anti-Semitic rhetoric, and then also
From Wisconsin.
Was she Wisconsin? I thought she
Wisconsin,
was
I
Michigan.
believe.
Anyway, that woman,
Anyway,
Ilana,
up there somewhere.
I think she's in that Dearborn area.
Where she's from Somalia. She was a refugee,
Yeah.
and so now she's living the American dream. So you shouldn't be able to take a step back and slap us in the face. But that's an editorial comment. And also, where is the delegation of what happened in Virginia? you know, both from the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. You know, and it's silent.
Yeah,
and
you don't hear it anymore.
Of course
No, you're
you
not
don't.
hearing
You know,
anything
it's
about it.
amazing. It's amazing when it's opportunistic. It's amazing when it's something that fits their narrative, that they're up in arms and they're 100% behind it. You know, but in the world, you know, there is fairness, and if it's a Democrat, then they should be able to say the exact same things if it was a Republican. Just like the situation with Wallet, the kid from Chicago, that.
Smollett.
Smollett.
That, you know, whenever he told somebody that happened, everybody jumps on the bandwagon. Everybody starts characterizing all of the conservatives that is the president because he has a red hat, that it's a triggering mechanism, and putting a noose around his neck. And oh my gosh, look at this, is exactly what we're afraid of. And then you find out that it was all fabricated. Everything. To the point that he paid these two guys with a personal check.
And just imagine if we had mob rule.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Pay with a personal check. That's
he
like
did.
going to your drug dealer and giving him a check.
and so
I heard he stopped payment. He's the only American to scam Nigerians.
no, I don't know. but that whole point about it is that, you know, if you are our elected representatives, then we need to hold you to a standard that we would hold ourselves to.
Yeah.
And wrong is wrong and right is right. Right? It's beyond politics. Right? It's a bigger calling. And when we hide behind a D or an R, which is what they're doing, our 4 delegates is what they're doing. It's time that whenever we have another opportunity, is to bring them home. You know, we would want to be able to say, you know what, I don't care if Negron is a Republican, he's chastising Republicans because that's not the New Hampshire way. That's not the representative that we voted to go to Washington. And that's not what we're seeing here. And it's sad. It's sad that, you know, they do some things that's in their best self-interest, whether they have another campaign coming up in 20 or whatever the case may be. And so that was, you know, I applaud Steve Stepanek to do that. They probably had 30 people that were out there. Some people spoke.
Did the press cover it?
No, WMER was not there. Of course they wouldn't, you know, but they were invited, I believe, and for other reasons they had a conflict.
But the Telegraph wasn't there either.
No, you know,
of course not.
It's one of those things that, you know, we cannot let up on that on our delegation. You know, we expect more from them. You know, the people spoke. That's who were voted in. But you know what? With that comes a long telephone cord, and they're responsive to us. You know, it isn't that once they leave here and they're up there, they get to do whatever they want. As a matter of fact, Ann Custer just had a town hall, the first one probably in 6 years. And I had somebody up there, and 24 people showed up. 3-term representative, 24 people show up. So, you know, it's one of those things. We need to hold them accountable. They work for us. You know, they don't work for themselves. And I think that was a great thing that Steve Stepanek did to at least put them on notice.
Overall, the public seems to forget who the government actually is.
Yeah, look in the mirror.
They think, I don't have anything to do with the government. I've got a representative there, and whatever they say is fine.
Right. Yeah, they do. It's short memory.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
short memory.
It's very short memory.
So that's one of the issues. How do we get into the public consciousness what's happening on a daily basis, both in Concord and down in Washington, D.C.? So they do have their antenna up, and they are paying attention to this, rather than just going into some kind of fog and then waiting for the political commercials to come out to have that person tell them what they want to, them to hear. I'm still not quite sure about. Why isn't the newspaper publishing every single day who was there, what the roll call was for the bills? I mean,
they used to in the Telegraph. They used to do that
for print, right? I mean, the paper when it comes to my house is pretty damn thin.
Right.
You think they could devote a page?
We've been trying to. I've been doing some recording up there now, but we almost need an army of people to go up there and videotape and tape these hearings. Because that's where the guts of everything's, the core of the issues are in the committee hearings, and it's almost impossible to cover that. You can see what they're voting on, in the Senate chambers and in the House chambers, but the really nitty gritty, what's going on, where the public discourse is happening, is in committee, and that's where you're seeing, everything happen. But the public doesn't see that, so they're not informed.
But, you know, they can't really go to that level of
No.
detail, can they? I mean, if you have 20 committees going on, all with hearings and all, you know, how do we distill this down so that they have something that's usable for them?
And
that
it's
they-
hard to do. That is the question. But you need, like I said, you need an army of people up there to do that. And really, that's what you want the media to do. I watched a couple of hearings, and there were a couple of reporters in there for like 2 minutes, holding up their camera, then walking out, going to do another one. Well, you didn't hear the three testimonies before, and the introduction of the bill, but something's happening. Okay, you know.
You want to say something, Don?
No.
Okay. No, but I think it's incumbent upon us that are still vested in this, you know, write LTEs, you know, get stuff there. Facebook is a great medium, and I know in our Facebook there that tells us, at least within Nashua, how your representative voted, right?
Okay, now I'll say what I was going to say. Since you mentioned Facebook.
Yes.
Educate people to the New Hampshire General Court website instead of Facebook.
Sure. Absolutely.
On Facebook, it's nothing but a bunch of lies.
Right.
Because people can say anything they want.
Right.
Nobody can hold them to whether it's the truth or not.
Right.
Go to the New Hampshire General Court website, pick up any bill you want, read the bill, educate yourself on what the bill says.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, too, is like, for instance, the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance they published something called the Gold Standard, where they look at the bills, give a brief analysis of it. Now, they do take it more from a libertarian side of things, but I still think it's a great place to get a synopsis of what's going on that week up there. To at least you get one side of what's happening in
But all of those sheets have a certain bias to them. The
Right.
green
Well, they
sheet,
do.
the pink sheet, the white sheet,
They do.
they all have a certain bias to
That
them.
was the thing when I was a freshman that, you know, you get, it's like a deck of cards.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, yay,
White sheet.
no, yay, no, yay, no.
Well, the Republicans had 3 different sheets. The Democrats had 1.
No, the
They got
Democrats,
3 by 5.
the majority leader shirtless with his thumb.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we got 30 seconds. By the way, the things I put on Facebook, they're true. Have you ever seen any of those press releases in the media that I send out?
No.
No. It's funny, huh?
No.
Well, we got 30 seconds. Let's wrap it up.
All right, I'm glad to be here. This was a wonderful roundtable discussion. I hope we get a chance to do more.
Absolutely. I appreciate the ability to have absolute open candor.
This is cool. I think we're going to do this every week.
I think so. If Carl has his way.
Right.
Until next week, thanks for watching The People's View, and we hope you enjoy our discussion, our banter.
Right.